The arrest of IMF President Dominique Strauss-Kahn earlier this month for allegedly raping a maid at a Manhattan hotel caused an international uproar. Concerns quickly arose over the potential impact on global trade and international politics. But one state assemblyman says the incident actually highlights another previously underreported problem, and that is the abuse of hotel workers. He wants to give all workers a panic button so they can use this to find if they find themselves the target of an attack. This issue again resurfaced today with the report that an Egyptian businessman groped and kissed another maid at a different Manhattan hotel. Assemblyman Roy Lancman joins me tonight from New York City to talk more about what some worry is an epidemic and what might be done to stop it. Assemblyman, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I would say it's good to see you. This is becoming really sort of something of a problem, obviously. It seems like it's been a problem for a while. Why is it that we've not heard about it before as much?
It's one of those things that the public doesn't become aware of until the public becomes aware of it. And then the public's aware of it, and every incident that occurs gets a lot of attention. You know, I come to this issue because I chair a subcommittee on workplace safety in the Assembly. So we learn that every profession, every occupation has its own workplace safety issues. And it's been known for a long time, at least within the industry, that for hotel workers, the occasional groping, inappropriate touching, inappropriate propositioning, and even going so far as a sexual assault, which we saw with the Dominique Strauss-Kahn case and the case just yesterday. These things happen, but now they are becoming part of the public's awareness, and now is an opportunity to try to do something about it.
Do you think, I mean, is the unfortunate situation that you're talking about a class of workers who most people ignore at the very best, right? I mean, don't want to really talk to the maid because the person knocks on your door and wants to make up your room, and maybe they wake you up, or, you know, no one really thinks about these people. Unfortunately, it's not exactly a highly paid position, and now all of a sudden, because it's got this guy who happens to have a high profile, I mean, how many times do you think this has been happening and nobody says anything about it?
Well, it happens quite a bit. You know, there are two factors that go into creating this problem. The first is that the women who are making up these rooms, and it's primarily women, they go into these rooms, they're isolated, they're not with other staff, they don't have security with them, and that creates the potential for a problem. And then you also have the fact that you have men who are out of town and either on vacation or on business. And for some certain percentage of men, they think that the normal standards of social conduct don't apply. It's a variation of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So they think that it's okay to act inappropriately. A lot of these women are new immigrants or people who do not really feel empowered. And it's an issue that their hotels don't necessarily take as seriously as they ought to. In the case that happened just yesterday with the Egyptian businessman, the hotel waited approximately 15 hours before notifying the police that the incident had occurred.
So this panic button legislation that you've been discussing, I mean, it seems like a great idea, but also maybe a little unwieldy. I mean, I guess my first question would be, what about the status, the immigration status of some of these folks? I know it's illegal to hire people unless they have the proper paperwork, but the reality is that, you know, some people's status might be in question, and they don't want to get the cops involved at all.
Well, first, in terms of the unwieldiness, I was able to bring with you a example of the panic button. It's actually something that we have in my office. It came with our alarm system. And as you can see, as your viewers can see, it's a very small device. It can be worn with a chain around the neck or in the pocket, depending on what the person carrying it is most comfortable with. But regarding a person's immigration status and their willingness to call the police, listen, that is something that every undocumented person working in our state has to consider for themselves. But it should certainly be the policy of the state of New York, and it should certainly be clear that we will make sure that every worker is safe in their workplace, regardless of their immigration status, regardless of whether they're documented or not. And we just have to make sure that workers know that they can report an unsafe incident, certainly something as serious as a sexual assault, without it impacting their immigration status.
Assemblyman, could you just hold that device up again, if you would, please? I mean, you're talking about a device. Now, I think that this probably is familiar to some viewers because it looks like the kind of device, a medical emergency device, and also a security device that you can actually pay for a service, if I'm not mistaken, and wear it around your neck in case you have some kind of, if you're elderly and you have some kind of emergency, for example. Have you spoken to law enforcement about this measure?
Well, it's absolutely correct that this is off-the-shelf technology. It's nothing futuristic or science fiction. A simple Google search of panic alert buttons will show many companies that provide this service to industries. And as you observed, many elderly Americans who are home alone pay for this service. It can be anywhere from $20 to $30 a month. If they fall down and can't get up, they push the button and an alarm is triggered and a phone call is made to the house or to a relative to determine what the problem is. So it's certainly something that's very workable, very doable. In terms of law enforcement, this is really something that the industry needs to take on and make sure that their employees are protected and safe. And it's really something that can be done very efficiently, very inexpensively. And when you consider the kind of consequences for a hotel worker who doesn't have this kind of access to emergency help in a situation such as a sexual assault, those are really very serious consequences, and they merit this simple measure of protection that we can afford to them.
Is this something that you're hoping to get done during the current legislative session?
I am. I think I have a bill in. I'm confident we're going to have a sponsor in the Senate hopefully this week, and I think that's something that can get done. As you observed, and I appreciate your endorsement, Liz, that it makes sense and it's a good idea.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I'm unfortunately not in the business of endorsing legislation. However, I mean it doesn't look like a very expensive device, is what I'm saying.
It's a very simple and inexpensive way of protecting a class of women, and again, it is primarily women, who the events of the last few weeks have shown to be highly vulnerable.
We don't have that much time left in the legislative session. We're saying that June 20th, and now we're looking, you're coming back tomorrow, the legislature's coming back tomorrow, and there's a lot of undone legislation. At the top of the list, of course, are the three priorities that the governor has set, which would be a property tax cap, gay marriage, and ethics reform. At the very top of the last we saw before the Memorial Day holiday was this sort of question as to whether the tax cap actually had a deal that was done. Do you believe, and are you hearing from leadership in the Assembly, that you'll be passing the tax cap bill this week?
Well, I don't know about doing it this week, but I think that we are close to a deal on it. But that deal hinges on a fourth priority, which you didn't mention, and I don't criticize that. It's not criticism of you because the governor hasn't mentioned it either. But that is rent control and the renewal of rent regulations. And the Speaker has been very clear, appropriately so, that a property tax cap and rent regulations are inextricably intertwined. And so do I think that we can get a property tax cap done based on what the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor are saying? Absolutely. But that has to come with some relief for New York City homeowners, and that's primarily renters, and that means renewing rent regulations. So hopefully all of those can get done in the next couple of weeks.
Right. The governor actually did put out a video message about rent regulations, but however he has not included it among that top trio of to-do list items, although as you noted, it's sort of twinned thanks to the Speaker in this bill, which makes the majority leader in the Senate not so pleased. It's very fascinating, a little bit of a standoff, and Assemblyman Lancman, I want to thank you very much for being here because we'll be keeping tabs on this and on your bill too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.